Politics. 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 Yeah. This is a loaded topic. People lose their logic over it, and though I hold opinions, I'm going to try to give a brief rundown of what the left and right are without showing a bias. I'll fail. To those of the opposing political orientation, sorry in advance. Now, I'm going to say a lot of things here about traditional left-wing and right-wing politics, as I was taught them in school, but I want to make sure you understand something in advance. This will all be a lot easier to understand if, when considering political parties, you keep in mind that there is usually a difference between what a political party claims to believe in and what they actually do. This will keep you from getting confused when a party claims that it's right-wing but supports left-wing policies, or left-wing but supports right-wing policies. So, without further ado, left and right. To quote the man who taught me, people have died for these things. He then drew 3 lines on a chalkboard and labeled them. The first line is the line of social policy. If you've ever heard someone who claims to support family values argue with someone who claims to be an ardent feminist, you've been hearing an argument taking place on this axis. The second line is the line of economic policy. This is the line of money spent, taxes raised, and budgets passed. The final line is the line of political control. But I'm taking that out. The thing about this line is that both sides have accused each other of being on the same side of the line, and to a certain degree, both sides have been right. The extremes on both sides have tended toward a very totalitarian state, and I think this line doesn't really fit the left versus right dichotomy, so I'm going to present it last, oriented from top to bottom to prevent analysis on why I put it on the left or the right. Anyhow, the social line. You're going to notice my biases here, because this is the one line where I can't actually get myself into a mind frame of the people on the other side. With the other 2 lines, I have reasonable arguments for all sides, and though I hold my beliefs, I can generally have reasonable conversations with people on the other side, provided they, in turn, are calm and logical about it. Seriously, though, nothing turns off my logical side like someone getting noisy and fanatical. But on the social line, I'm a firm leftist. The right has just been wrong one too many times on this spectrum for me to give them any credence. Women deserve the right to vote, gays deserve the right to marry, and people should all be equal no matter what their racial background. And that's the core of the social issues on the left versus right spectrum. The last time a major rightist was well known for the defense of social equality, it was this guy. This guy. That was over 100 years ago. So, if you've noticed by the issues I've brought up, it should be obvious what the social spectrum is. The social right is the side that wants things like traditional definition of marriage, and espouses the virtues of the traditional family structure and traditional gender roles. The left says, nah, screw all that, people should be allowed to do anything they want, as long as they aren't hurting anyone. If you've heard different, go ahead and tell me, but that's pretty much the rhetoric I've heard from the left and right over the years. And that looks like how it's been for the last approximately 60 years at least, though there were some differences in how the line is now, and how it was before then. Now, on to the line where I don't have biases, the economic line. There's an odd phenomenon here, in that when I present this line without bias, people tend to assume I'm biased in their favor. I guess the sides in question just sound better to the people who believe in them. Anyhow, here's the rundown. On the right are people who believe in carefully controlling government spending, cutting back on unnecessary social programs, eliminating bureaucracy, and using the savings to eliminate deficit spending, pay off their debts, and maybe pass on some of that money to the taxpayers by cutting taxes. In comparison, the traditional left-wing economic stance is for higher taxes used to fund essential services, healthcare, education, transport, utilities, and so on. Personally, over the years, I found an increasing number of people driven to the economic right because they don't trust the government to spend their money in a responsible fashion, and driven to the left because they don't trust the general populace to spend their money in a responsible fashion. I don't trust anyone, so I get the benefit of avoiding bias on this issue. And now the final line, government power. On one end, we have totalitarianism, and on the other, anarchy. Supposedly, democracy lies somewhere in the middle, a centrist political system. To find out where you lie on the spectrum, think about the following questions. In times of emergency, should we have martial law, or is it better to retain our civil liberties? If you knew that the government was watching your every move, right now, would that make you feel safer, or would you feel like your privacy was being violated? Would you prefer an overbearing leader who enforces the law strictly, or an uncaring one who doesn't really pay attention to you? Do you think the government has the right to look at what's in your internet browser history right now? I don't have a real opinion on whether this is a right-wing or left-wing issue, because there are anarchic and totalitarian types on both sides. I found both sides tend to portray the other side as too iron-fisted or too disorganized, while portraying themselves as either freedom-loving or safety-oriented. Anyhow, that's my rundown of basic politics. Sorry for the spot of bias I showed earlier. Actually, on second thought, I'm not sorry. That's the one area I'm proud to be biased in. I hope you enjoyed that, and we'll continue later in Part 2, The Houses of Westeros. I mean, the major political parties of Canada. Hope this helped.